Dear Playbills, welcome to the podcast that One Direction doesn't want you to hear. It's Monkeys and Playbills, y'all!
Hello, everybody. You're confused.
And that's okay.
And I'm Jillian Willems.
I'm Paul DeGurse. This is a show about Broadway musicals that ran for 100 performances or fewer on Broadway.
And what the heck happened?
And today, we're talking about Bartram and Hill's The Story of My Life.
Bartram, Hill, don't they run a circus? I don't know.
Like a Barnum and Bailey thing?
Yeah,
Is that what you're doing?
That's what I'm after.
Is this the first musical from Canadian creators that we've had on the show?
I was actually trying to reflect on that because technically,
Yeah.
did we not talk about the one at the Charlottetown Festival?
We did In a Revive or Die.
In a Revive or Die.
We did Cronenberg. Which one's the director?
Cronenberg's the beer. No.
No, that's Corona. David Cronenberg is the director. Cronenberg 1782 was the Hamlet rock opera.
Rockabye Hamlet.
Rockabye
Thank
Hamlet.
you.
For those of you joining us for the first time, that voice is Producer Daph. Producer Daph produces our show in partnership with the Village Conservatory for Music Theatre, the Crescent Arts Centre, and the Canada Arts Council. Thank you to all of them for their wonderful support.
Do we get to talk about whatever we want now?
I kind of think we have to.
Thanks, Canada Council.
Thanks.
So this is unique, this one,
Yep.
in that we haven't, as far as either of us know, and Daph can fact check this for
Yep.
us, have not done a full episode on a Canadian musical before.
And that's what this is. This is The Story of My Life from creators Neil Bartram and Brian Hill, both of whom are Canadian citizens. One of them was born in Canada, one of them was born in England, but Canadian through and through, and the initial development of this show was in Canada as well.
So let's talk a little bit about where it played, how long it played, and then we can get into the history of it.
Yeah, let's do it.
The Story of My Life, or The Story of One Direction, a tale of a boy band. No, just kidding.
A tale of 5 beautiful young men with baby faces and strong jawlines at the same time.
Singing high. Okay. The Story of My Life. Previews began at the Booth Theatre on February 3rd, 2009. It opened on February 19th, 2009, and it closed on February 22nd, 2009, after 19 previews and 5 performances.
Those ones are always brutal because that means they posted closing before opening night.
I was actually going
Right?
to ask about that.
They must have.
Because a part of me goes, do you let them open and then the next morning you're like, okay, tell them toward the end of previews, like, hey, I don't think this is going to see the end of this week? Like, how
My
is
gut
that
is
handled?
you tell them right before the half, before opening night. So with 30 minutes before they go on stage, you mention it.
Oh my God, just in passing, you're like, hey,
Oh,
knock,
but-
knock, this is your 30, and also we're closing.
Also, we're closing before the end of the week.
Oh, that is an
What a gut
intense
punch.
atmosphere to bring into your last show.
Right?
Jeez. Ugh.
This is going to be wild because for a show so recently done, this was, what is that now?
13
Just 13 years ago?
Yep.
There's very little documentation of the creation of this show
Yeah.
pre-Broadway.
Exactly.
It seems like, and we'll get into this further, already as they were heading to Broadway, they had their sights set on, we're going to license this to regional theaters, and this is where it's going to make its money.
Interesting. So it was almost as though Broadway was like not on the radar. Is that what you think?
I don't know, but 'cause they did put it up at no small expense.
Yeah, that's true.
But certainly there are very few of the lead up articles and videos
Right.
that everyone else, all their contemporaries were doing at this time.
Yeah.
Whether that means they didn't do it or whether that means they've, for whatever reason, I can't imagine why, but like scrubbed some of
sure.
that content from the internet.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure.
Interesting.
But there's going to be some wild speculation on this episode
Oh, I
because we
can't
don't have
wait.
a ton of fact to go on.
So here is where I find it interesting. So
Yep.
this show, Story of My Life,
Yep.
premiered, you said, at Cannes Stage?
Yep.
Okay.
Professional premiere at the Canadian Stage in Toronto.
Okay. 2006.
Yep.
So a part of me is like, 2006, we weren't really filming stuff yet as promo.
Nope,
Like,
that's
I
true.
don't remember really starting to film promos until a couple years later.
Yeah.
Or, like, in terms of advertising specifically for Canadian theater or archiving for Canadian theater.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as accessible as it is
Yeah.
today.
I think that's a point well taken.
Case in point, YouTube was invented 1 year earlier.
Right.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this on our episode on Lestat, which was
Yes.
04?
03 or 04.
03. And that's the first time I remember seeing digital content for a show.
Yes.
So like right around there, people are just starting.
I watched Wicked that way.
Totally. Yeah. I suppose the fact that we were only just starting to use the internet the way we use it now is one of the factors for not having much information. It also seems like maybe this didn't get a ton of coverage from our usual sources.
Yes, I agree.
There's no variety articles. There's no I stayed away from the reviews as I do on this show, but there's
Yeah.
no like preview New York Times things or anything.
No, I actually really struggled to find reviews
Yeah.
on this show. Like, I think even the ones that I found were more anecdotal. Like, there wasn't anything from any major publications that I found.
Another really interesting thing about the way this show is advertised and marketed is that they made no mention of the fact that Alvin is dead in the story, which is not a twist. It's
Right.
literally the top of the show this is, and we'll get to the plot in a second, but this
Yeah.
is one man struggling to write a eulogy for his lifelong best friend.
Yes.
And he's like, this is the opening moments premise of the show.
Right.
And it's the ghost of the memory of his best friend visits him and helps him write it. Why would you not mention that? That's literally the premise of the show.
It's funny because in the marketing images that I found
Yeah.
and even like the cover of their album, their cast recording,
Yep.
it looks like a more dapper like Frog and Toad.
That's exactly what it looks like. The adventures of
Yeah.
Alvin and Tom.
Yeah. Which I found really funny because I'm like you're saying, or to your point, it does not really give you an indication of this deep friendship that
Yeah.
we're about to explore after Alvin has passed.
Like, and especially if you're trying to sell a show with no other hook.
Yeah.
Like two fabulous Broadway stars, but not big names.
Yeah.
Not composers who have any history on Broadway, not an adaptation of anything.
Right.
Why would you not at the very least sell it on the cool part of your premise?
Or do you totally hide it and spring it on everyone at the very end of the play, which I want to talk about when we get to the book.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's do a plot synopsis and let's get into this show.
I love it.
5 minutes on the clock. Here we go.
We open on a blank stage, ostensibly.
Yeah.
Then lights up, and we meet Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What you know, Tom. It's the first thing you hear in the show. He sings it. That's not the first thing you hear in the show. There's some dialogue
Yeah.
before it. That's the first sung thing you hear in
sung
the show.
thing.
Tom's writing a eulogy. It becomes clear very quickly
Mm-hmm.
for his best friend Alvin, who he's known since childhood, and he's having trouble writing it. He has writer's block.
Yes.
So the memory of Alvin appears to help him figure out what to write and starts to take him through. We're taken back in time through memories of Alvin's and Tom's to find out. Basically, we start at the start of their friendship and go through the course of this 90-minute show, go through the major events, significant events in their lives as friends. So we start in their first grade classroom, where their teacher, Mrs. Remington, they're both dressed up for Halloween. Tom is dressed up as Clarence, the angel from It's a Wonderful Life.
Yep.
That's so specific.
Oh, just
Yeah, it's
wait.
the whole thing. And Alvin is dressed up as the ghost of his dead mom.
Yep.
So they're both like the weirdos in the class. So
Yeah.
Mrs. Remington, who's ostensibly a good teacher, is like, hey, you guys should sit together at lunch. And
Yeah.
they become best friends. So then we get to experience them growing up a little bit. Tom decides he wants to be a famous writer because he's given, is it Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer?
The Adventures of
Tom
Tom
Sawyer.
Sawyer,
Yeah.
I think.
I think so too. He's given, I'm pretty sure it's Tom Sawyer. It might be Huckleberry Finn. Tom gets this book from Alvin because Alvin's dad owns a used bookstore, decides he wants to be a writer. They have a moment where they explore the theory, the chaos theory about butterfly flapping its wings.
Yes.
That's going to be important later because then it gets foggy. Then it gets a little foggy in the middle because then does Thomas move?
So
to the
Tom is sort of like on Alvin because Alvin's a bit unique in his thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's where
totally.
the butterfly thing comes in because Alvin is
Right.
like, look, a butterfly can flap its wings and make a difference. What about me if I do this? And then Tom is like, you're weird. Stop being weird. We're going to high school.
That's right.
And
Totally.
college.
Throughout this whole thing, Alvin is eccentric. Alvin's an eccentric, and Tom's kind of a little more straight down the middle.
Yes.
So they're in high school, but then what's the next big story?
No, you're right. College. Tom leaves to go to college.
Tom goes to college, and Alvin goes to work at his dad's bookstore.
Correct.
At the used bookstore, takes over the used bookstore. And then a few years later, Tom's a successful author now.
Yes.
And he invites Alvin to come visit him in the city.
Mm-hmm. With Tom's fiance.
Totally. And Alvin's so excited, and he's calling Tom all the time. And then finally Tom freaks out, and he's like, actually, you know what? Don't come. It's very sad.
Ugh.
Immediately after that, Tom also breaks up with his fiance and kind of stops talking to Alvin.
Yeah, becomes very withdrawn.
Yeah. He ends up sneaking back to his hometown and sneakily watches Alvin give a eulogy for his father who's died, for Alvin's father who's died. And is a real dick and is just like, rather than being there for his old friend, sits and watches and is jealous of him for how well he tells stories while he's doing the eulogy.
Ugh. It's just gross.
And then we're at the end of the story, or at the end of the play rather, and it's revealed that Alvin, the circumstances surrounding Alvin's death is mysterious.
Correct.
He fell off a bridge, and there's question of whether he died by suicide, whether he jumped off the bridge, or whether he fell off the bridge, or whatever the case may be. And there's some like wonderful life thing there with the bridge.
Yeah.
That's kind of a recurring thematic element. And then it ends with them remembering making snow angels together. Mm-hmm. And Thomas beginning to actually write the eulogy.
Yes.
The whole recurring subplot that I forgot to mention is that Thomas has writer's block. This is why he's having this mental breakdown.
Which is also the name of the bookstore.
Is writer's block.
Yeah.
The writer's block.
Because
That's
it takes up a whole city block. It's a double entendre.
Right. That's a great name for a
I do
bookstore.
love that part of it. I think you did it.
Did I do it?
I got 10 seconds left.
It's fine. It's okay. It's pretty good. There's like a set conceit where Thomas is pulling books off the bookshelf.
Yeah.
For then these are the memories.
That's it.
And that's it. That's story of my life. 90 minutes, one act, in and out, 2 people in the whole show. If we wanted to license this show tomorrow, what would it say?
So mtishows.com,
Great.
where we license this from. So I'm glad you said that. This is what they say. The story of my life follows the friendship of Alvin and Thomas, 2 men from a small town. These lifelong friends are reunited after Alvin's mysterious death. They're reunited. Okay, sorry. That's just funny. A funny way to
Yeah,
word
it absolutely
that.
is.
In the abstract world of his mind, Thomas struggles to write Alvin's eulogy while recounting the many turns that their lives have taken since meeting as children. Alvin searches through the manuscripts and stories in Thomas's mind.
Yep.
To lead him on a journey of remembrance. Through music and song, these 2 friends recount their adventures, explore their past dissonance, and ultimately discover what is at the base of every strong friendship: love.
Aw, that's a pretty good synopsis all told.
Yeah, they also have another one, which is this. A man struggles to write his best friend's eulogy in this emotional tribute to the people who change our lives. I like that, too. That's
also
nice.
like not wrong.
Not wrong.
All right. Well, that's the show. Let's, are we ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's totally get into it. So, as we mentioned, this musical premiered at the Canadian stage in 2006.
Totally.
Starring Brent Carver.
Yep.
Who listeners will remember from Parade.
Canadian stage legend, Brent Carver. We can't find it, but we're pretty sure as Alvin. That's the track that he seems to fit.
I think that makes sense. Like, if we were casting it, that's where we would put him.
Absolutely.
And Jeffrey Kuhn. So from there, it was produced by National Alliance for Music Theater's Festival of New Musicals. And I think that's somewhere in the States.
That's a big old thing. It's a big old new musical, like, incubation zone.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that was in 2007. And then in November of 2008, at Goodspeed Musicals in Connecticut, they picked up what would become the Broadway cast.
Totally.
So Will Chase and Malcolm Getz.
Yeah. Goodspeed, another company that is dedicated to developing musicals, usually in like a later stage of development, getting them from the musical's written and it's good to Broadway. They did this for Come From Away. They did this famously for Annie back in the day.
Oh, cool. And so then it was, of course, on Broadway in 2009 for a very short amount of time. And then it's actually had a ton of regional productions since. Like more than I could even count on Wikipedia.
Which makes good sense when you think about it.
I
Two
agree.
people, you can cast like pillars of your community that audiences love.
They can play their own instrument. I'm just kidding.
Do a story of my life, a 2-person show there they also play the instruments.
It's perfect.
That's so funny.
I have a very good idea. Let's make the actors musicians.
Are we doing book music lyrics first?
Yeah, probably. I will say this. I find it interesting how often it's been translated. Like, they've got a German translation. I think they're doing one in Italy this year.
I saw that as well, yep.
I just find that so exciting, and I'm interested to maybe unpack why it's resonated so much with so many people, and how it continues to have such life.
Yeah.
Which is exciting to me.
I'm very interested as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, book, music, and lyrics.
Book, music, and lyrics.
Book by Brian Hill, who is the resident director of Lion King. What a lucrative gig.
And he's like a Disney guy in that way as well.
Yeah.
He was resident director on Little Mermaid for a little while.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. That to me is the ultimate dream, where you can have something that's like pretty stable.
Oh, absolutely.
And consistent, and then get to do like little side projects.
Getting a residency on a show like that just seems like a dream.
Oh,
what a good
dream.
gig.
Music and lyrics by Neil Bartram, who you mentioned before. I think it's his only like Broadway credit, but I don't imagine it will be his only one, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like there's more on the way. I
feel the same way. Bartram and Hill have written a few other cool shows, but I believe this is the only one that has seen the Broadway stage.
If I am not mistaken, Neil Bartram, or maybe both of them, Bartram and Hill, are working on Bedknobs and Broomsticks, the musical.
I believe it's both of them.
We do need to take a moment, because I said Bedknobs and Broomsticks, to acknowledge the passing of our dear Angela Lansbury.
One of the absolute greatest.
Who literally made my childhood, and I'm sure many others. And then also in adulthood, I started to really understand and admire her abilities as just like an artist moving through the world.
Yeah.
And I am sad to see her go, but I feel honored that we have so much evidence of the work that she left behind.
Right? Everyone go listen to the the original movie soundtrack of Beauty and the Beast or something.
Oh, yes.
Just listen to how you set the definitive version of a song right away.
Totally.
Oh.
Don't tell Celine Dion you said that.
Okay.
So they are working on Bedknobs and Broomsticks, the musical, which I'm actually kind of excited about, because I think the story lends itself really beautifully to a stage production.
I agree. I think that could potentially be really nice. They wrote a real nice song cycle that was commissioned by Sheridan College in the kind of mid-2010s. Sheridan College, another place where there's a lot of new musical development going on, especially at that time.
I love that.
The piece is called The Theory of Relativity, and it's kind of this cool thing where it's like, it was commissioned specifically for college-age students. As theater educators, I think that's friggin' rad.
That is cool.
And it's a cool piece. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. I'm going to recommend it to our students. I haven't in the past, because I've never really thought about it. But revisiting it now, as I revisited Bartram and Hill, it's a cool piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
The music was orchestrated by Jonathan Tunick. We might have talked a little bit about him on Anyone Can Whistle, but I can't recall if he was working with Sondheim yet. He might not have been.
Jonathan Tunick is one of the most legendary orchestrators in Broadway.
Yep.
I feel very passionately about him. And in my opinion, with Chorus Line, also with Company, set the sound for the 70s and 80s in a huge way. Listen to the original orchestrations for nothing. Oh. It's outstanding. And it's like, there it is. There's the next 15 years ahead of us.
It just like spins.
Yeah, absolutely. His work on Story of My Life is fantastic. Yeah. It's a beautiful chamber orchestration. I admire it a lot. It's elegant. It's quirky.
Yeah.
It's everything you would want a chamber orchestration to be. Honestly, I would recommend anyone with even a passing interest in Broadway orchestration. First of all, send me an email. There's like 3 of us, so you should come and talk sometime. And B, check out Story of My Life just for that. The orchestrations make it worth it.
I actually found this orchestration to be very obvious.
Yeah, it
like
is.
In the sense that if a person who maybe doesn't fully have their ear turned to that kind of a thing could still identify a lot of aspects of it that make it great. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's a fantastic observation. I totally agree. That's one reason to recommend it. I think the reason for that is much more obvious than a lot of Tunick's orchestrations. And I think that's because it's a 2-person show.
Yeah, okay.
I know I'm in the process of orchestrating a 2-person show right now. After Light the Musical, come check it out. And there's so much necessity to provide musical interest because you don't have vocal textures, or you have some vocal textures at your disposal, obviously, but not many. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of value in creating an orchestration that is not flashy, but obvious. I like that you used obvious. Obvious is the exact word. Mm-hmm. Just to make the show interesting. Think back in your head to Story of My Life that we've both just listened to. The songs don't necessarily get that samey, and that's a lot of Jonathan Tunick's work.
Oh, I agree.
He's working double overtime. That's not a shot at Neil Bartram for writing songs that are samey, quote unquote. But Jonathan Tunick really does a ton of heavy lifting to give this show a musical arc.
Absolutely. So obviously we both have pretty strong positive feelings about Jonathan Tunick's orchestrations. But do you have any thoughts on the music and lyrics while we're at it?
Is it maybe already obvious how we both feel that we started with the orchestration as we were talking? There is nothing wrong with the music and the lyrics in this show.
Very functional.
Very functional. For my taste, I prefer a little more controversy in my music.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. With this music and these melodies and these lyrics, so you can maybe put some of this at the feet of Brian Hill as well. Mm-hmm. As soon as like an idea starts or like a verse starts, you know how it ends.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
No
You
question.
can see the ending from the start.
Yes.
And then it happens. And on one hand, that's very satisfying. That's really easy to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to listen to. But it doesn't necessarily reward a more in-depth listening experience.
Yeah. Like, I don't know that I want to go back and have another listen to the soundtrack. Like, I think I'm okay. Like, I felt all the tempos were pretty samey.
Yeah.
So it does fall into that same speed. Everything sort of like just is the same tempo.
It's that contemporary musical thing where it's like
the speechy thing. Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly. So I found that hard because I don't mind if there's melodically not as much variety, but I will get lulled pretty quick if everything's sort of moving at the same pace.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I can get behind that. Yeah.
But I will say I kind of liked the lyrics.
Yeah?
Like, they are most certainly not the worst lyrics I've heard or we've talked about on this podcast. And I actually might even say they're among the better lyrics of contemporary musical theater.
There's some really funny stuff.
Their rhyme schemes are great.
Yeah.
The timing sometimes, like the way they rhyme gets switched up, which I appreciate. Yeah, there's something about it that I just was like, oh, I'm glad. Like, someone worked really hard on these lyrics, and it shows.
And that's not to say as well, I should say, I'm going to shout out some lyrics in a second. That's not to say that there was not hard work done on the music.
No,
or even
certainly
that
not.
Music, I feel like I just came down really hard on the music. It's nice. It's good.
Yeah.
Writing a musical is hard, and Neil Bartram did a good job. It's really nice. Since we're on a podcast where we are forced to delve into these things, I absolutely just want more harmonic interest or melodic interest or something. It's like you wrote the skeleton to the songs, now give it some spice, you know?
They only sang together for like 12 bars of the whole show, hey?
At the very end there, right?
And the end of maybe the fifth last song they sang like the last line together and they had a harmony. Then a couple songs before the end they sang together where there was a harmony.
And at the very end there's no harmony though.
There's nothing.
They sing it all in unison. Which is not the choice I would make, frankly. I don't know. I'm not sure I love it as a choice, but I can see why it was made
I see why it was made. Yeah.
My favorite lyric of Bartram and Hill's in this show, the song is called Mrs. Remington. It's about how the two met.
Okay.
And it's
what I think it is.
They're talking about Mrs. Remington, who's a very sweet teacher who also had some facial hair.
Yes.
And maybe she was menopausal. Lack of estrogen will cause a lot of odd conditions, some acute. The irony would never face her, namesake of a famous razor, and to be so facially hirsute.
Yes.
That's very funny. That's a
very
funny line.
Like, even though I don't love the idea that we have a whole song devoted to a beautiful teacher who made such a difference in their lives, and then we're like giggling about her beard, but it's like
her facial hair.
But like, you know, I appreciate 100%.
I'm glad you said that. I feel the same way.
Scheme.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
yeah.
It's very Gilbert and Sullivan. It's very modern major.
Yeah.
But contemporized, which I love.
Yeah. That's them at their best, is using the fact that you can see the end to their advantage.
Yeah.
Where it's like, in the case of this line, that acute is going to be the rhyme.
Yeah.
But because you can see the rhyme, it's the reason we rhyme. We do rhymes in there.
Yeah.
Your brain starts working and being like, all right, so how does it rhyme with acute? And then all of a sudden, all these other words are going off in your head and you're overwhelmed for a second. And you've been tricked into being deeply invested in this story, in this song.
Yes.
I wish that their whole show, that this whole show showed the same musical and lyrical effectiveness that these moments do. And there's a lot of moments like that are really nice.
Okay, let's talk about the book while we're here.
Yes,
because
yes,
I think
please.
we're like, this is the time.
I think that was the exact time.
Okay. Why doesn't Thomas just tell his friend what's going on?
Because the reason he gives for telling Alvin not to come to the city. Do they ever say which city it is?
They never say which city. They just say the city.
It seems like it's like New York, and then they live in like upstate. Right?
Yeah,
It's kind of what
It's like
I
a
always
Buffalo
assumed. Yeah, totally.
thing.
The reason they give is Alvin's like, I haven't told my fiance that you're coming, and this is all too busy.
I don't think he actually says that. Doesn't he just doesn't the song go like, I think I'm gonna like it here. And then he's like,
This
don't
could
come.
be my end of...
Sorry.
Not wrong.
Whatever he said.
Yeah.
And then he's like, don't come. And then there's like a couple more lines of song, but there's actually no like, don't come because I'm really struggling with my girlfriend. And I don't remember an explanation.
I just listened to it.
Okay.
There's definitely nothing like I'm really struggling or anything.
Right.
But there's just the vaguest like...
a vague thing.
As
Okay.
it's all piling up, he's like, oh, and this and this and this, don't come.
Oh,
But
I see what you're saying.
And it's never even anything like, oh, me and my fiance are having trouble.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, and I haven't told her that you're coming, and
Right.
this and that. One way or another, I think it's the biggest mistake of this book and this play.
Yeah.
I find it very affecting.
It's so infuriating.
I'm so crushed for Alvin. I'm so sad. I just can't get behind Thomas for the rest of the show.
Oh, I know, me neither.
So like,
not at all.
He breaks up with the fiance right after that, and it's this really long, meandering song that he's singing. And the whole time, I'm like, you tool.
Yeah.
You couldn't have let your friend the whole song before that Alvin's singing is about how excited he is to just come and hang out in New York.
With you.
You couldn't have just taken a few days and hung out with your old friend, man. Come on. He's so excited.
it is so frustrating. And then, like you're saying, I am not on Thomas's side.
Yeah.
I don't think he makes any discoveries or changes to who he is for the rest of the show. I mean, I at least didn't get that impression, but maybe there's more to it that I missed. But I don't feel like he is redeemed.
Yep.
And I feel like then everything I have just seen leading up to that moment is all bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Alvin's too good for you.
Yep.
He wasted so much energy lifting you up and you did nothing in return.
This is the cool story of Alvin Kelby, who seems like a really nice bookstore owner, and his dick friend Thomas.
And then I'm
Frankly,
mad.
yeah.
And I'm mad because everyone said it was about love and I only saw one way.
Yeah.
Love.
I agree completely. And then after that, Alvin's dad dies. And Thomas he comes back for the funeral and doesn't even, like, hides in the back and watches the eulogy without saying hi.
Thomas, I know you're insecure. We see it. It's everywhere. But, like, you just need to, like, do better.
So that's kind of the big challenge of this show for me is, at its core, I mean, the story resonates, obviously. I'm affected by it. I'm affected by this friendship.
We clearly have a lot of feelings about it.
So that's done well. But it certainly does nothing to win me back to Thomas's side, which is where we should be by the end of the play.
Was that what they were aiming for, do you think? Was the point of the play to have Thomas redeemed?
And if not, should it be?
Right. Maybe that's the question.
It seems like the ending they wrote is, oh, and I remember why we were friends and how nice that was.
Yeah. But
whereas you'd hope that the ending, with all that stuff in the middle, you'd hope the ending should be, wow, I was a real asshole to this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this eulogy has got to be like my tribute to this friend who I was a real dick to.
It has to be the best story I ever write.
Yeah, absolutely. And that doesn't really come across. So for that reason, I don't love the book if we're talking about it as far as story goes.
Totally.
As far as books go, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's
nice.
fine. I think it's snappy. Like, the show is only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And, listeners know how we feel about a 90-minute
it.
show.
Great idea.
It's perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, here is another question I will ask.
Yes.
Because I have my feelings about it.
Yep.
Do you think that it was a good thing that we knew from the very start that Alvin was dead.
I think there could be a very compelling story where we don't know right away. Mm-hmm. I think that could be a lot of fun. That's a great question. What do you think?
Well, I don't know for certain because I don't dislike the fact that we know right away.
He's writing a eulogy.
Yeah, I think it's a fine structure. I just wonder if, specific to the Broadway audience and in a space that big, maybe a person realizing they're a jerk and trying to redeem themselves by way of a eulogy isn't enough of a twist. Maybe the twist is we see them together and they're talking about and reflecting on their friendship through the ages, and then we find out toward the end.
Because I think that's a fantastic observation. I agree completely. Because as it stands right now, they do feel the need for that twist clearly. Because the twist they use, the twist in quotation marks, is that Alvin may have jumped off a bridge.
Right, but even
they never
that...
they never clarify that, and they never get into it further.
That's right. I actually like how they handle that.
Yeah.
So for the listeners who may not have heard, there's a song toward the end. It might even be the second last song. Thomas is asking, what happened? I need to know what happened. Yeah. Was it my fault? Basically, did I do this?
That is nice. That's a nice part of the show.
It is. Yeah. And then Alvin is here's what we know. You'll never know. It's it's a kind of a great...
And I get some chills there. That's
I do
good.
too.
And there's something nice in this guy who's been a dick being was this my fault? If that was what it was going to be, maybe just go for that. That's a sad story, but let's have that story.
That actually to me is a really great representation of a grief process.
Absolutely.
Because when you are grieving, you're sort of wondering, was there something I could have done?
Anything I could have done, absolutely.
Yeah, no matter, And so I feel that as a representation of that phase of grief or that stage is really effective.
Yeah.
I found myself quite emotional.
I did too. Yep.
Through that and through Butterfly, of course. But yeah, so I asked myself the question of had I been surprised by the fact that Alvin was dead, would that have been maybe a more, I don't know, satisfying device to use?
That, and I'm never a fan of using suicide just as a shock punch, dramatic thing. But maybe making it text that he took his own life, which is a terrible and tragic thing to happen in someone's life and the life of everyone around that person. Yes. And then you can actually have the question be, how do I cope with this? Did I have some part in this because I drifted away from this guy? And once again, that's a different story. It's a sad story. It's a different story. It might be a more effective story though. I'd like to move us towards the end of this section.
Sure. And by
sharing one final thought. There's a song in the middle of the show called The Butterfly, which is ostensibly Tom's first novel. It's this problem that, have you ever seen the film? Do you know the film Mr. Holland's Opus?
No.
It's with Richard Dreyfuss.
But I can assume what it's about based on the name.
It's about a high school music teacher.
Great.
It follows him through his career and all the kids that whose lives he touches.
Yeah.
And as he's doing this, he's writing this piece of music.
Oh, great.
And at the end, all his former students surprise him by getting together and playing the piece.
You know what? I actually might have seen this.
Oh, sure. It's like a 90s movie, like a 90s feel-good Oscar bait. It's nice.
I'm certain I've seen this.
But the challenge is, you get to the end, and you've been building up this opus and talking about how Mr. Holland here is actually a brilliant composer. Mm-hmm. And then they play it. And it's this... dumb 90s thing. It's this the soundtrack to friggin' Angels in the Outfield or something. Which is fine. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's
But when you've been building it.
You took 30 years to write this, hey bud? And so this is a similar thing of Thomas is a hell of a writer. He's a real storyteller. He's incredible. And then the Butterfly song this really hit me the first time I listened to this especially. I was is he a children's author?
Right.
Does he write children?
Right.
I can't imagine a contemporary adult novel. Or I can't imagine this being letting you into a creative writing program in a major university.
Oh, God, that's funny.
But it's also a nice song. It's nice.
It's
really nice.
It's
quite
lovely.
Nice. Yeah.
No, it's lovely. The reason I liked it is because to me it felt like one of the only moments where we saw evidence of Thomas really truly listening to and respecting Alvin.
Yeah, very fair.
You know?
One more where he's actually a good friend in return.
Yeah, where he's like, my friend has been championing me to just put stuff on paper and supporting me and giving me all I would need to like write good short stories. Yeah. I'll do this for him.
Yeah.
It's the only time really that I recall in the play that happens.
Especially because, frankly, the play heavily implies that Tom gets most of his initial ideas from Alvin.
Oh,
and like Alvin shows him how to structure stories by telling them to him.
Exactly.
Tom sucks. What a dick.
And it's funny because I didn't hate him so much, but now that we've been talking about it,
right?
Like,
I really don't like this guy.
Wow, it's such a one-sided friendship. Like, how rude.
So that said, let's give some ratings.
Okay. Out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys do you give this music and lyrics?
6.5.
Ooh, that's nice. Yep. That's really nice.
I feel good about that.
I was going to say 6.
Yeah, it's really functional. It tells the story well and clearly. There's never any moments where I'm like, oh, that was a cheesy lyric. That was a bad lyric. It's just that wanting for that little spark of something extra that you see sometimes a little bit.
Absolutely. That's where my head's at as well. And if it weren't for the gorgeous orchestrations, I don't know if I would not have fallen asleep.
It's also worth saying maybe it would help a lot more seeing it.
Oh,
live.
always.
You know what I mean? Right, totally.
Always, yeah. And then out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys do you give this book?
I think 4.
Ooh.
I think it's, once again, it's a fully functional play. There's nothing that I find take any special issue with except for possibly the use of suicide as a plot device.
Yeah.
But, being mean to poor Miss Remington just because she's got a little bit of facial hair.
Yeah.
But mostly, we need to lay Thomas and the dick that he is at the feet of one of these ratings.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be at the
and
book.
I think it's
I'm taking off like a 1.5 because Thomas is a reprehensible character in retrospect.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was actually landing around a 5.
Great, totally. 5 is a very reasonable rating for this book. Yeah.
I really like small cast shows. I really like a two-hander.
Yeah, so do I.
And I think that, other than those few things that you brought up, I feel like it's about a 5 for me. That's okay.
But that's okay.
Let's move on to direction and direction because there's no dancing.
There is someone very special worth talking about. Our best friend and yours, Richard Maltby Jr.
That's right, everybody. This play was directed by Richard Maltby Jr. You're probably like, Maltby? That sounds delicious.
I'll take a vanilla one, please.
Where do we know him from, Paul?
Richard Maltby Jr., we know him from being a director and playwright and producer, or also lyricist.
Yep.
Although we don't think we've covered any of his lyrics on the show just yet. He had a big hand in Pirate Queen, if I recall correctly. I don't think he directed it.
Oh, yes.
But he was one of the major players in Pirate Queen.
He was the lyricist behind Nick and Nora.
And he was additional lyrics on Pirate Queen and like helped with the translation.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So we've talked about a couple Maltby things, but definitely not in his capacity as a director.
Yeah.
Music direction by David Holsenberg.
Legend. Great music director.
And then associate director was Lisa Shriver. So that's your creative team.
A small creative team.
I appreciate that. Your creative team should rarely outnumber your cast.
Yes.
Rarely, if ever. What I saw actually was nice. It seemed pretty simple. And the reason that I think it's a good thing is because the tendency might be to like overdo it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you've got a small
we only have
cast.
2 people. Let's build this up.
Yeah, but I think they kind of went the other way, which I appreciate.
Do you think that Richard Maltby is the one who can be credited for the books?
Ooh.
And like that whole conceit?
Maybe not.
I have no idea.
And the reason I would say maybe not is it's like a chicken and an egg question.
Yeah.
When we talk about books, are you talking about the actual set itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, yeah. That's a fair clarification. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the conceit of the physical books.
Right.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that's chicken or egg because was that a choice that was made in workshopping the original production? Is that something that was brought from CanStage? Or is this
or
a
Good
new...
Speed or who knows where?
Exactly. Yeah. And I wonder, did a designer make that choice? And then they were like, we love this. Let's build it into our play.
Totally.
So I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, no, you're right. We'll discuss that more during the design section.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So with that said, I'm I don't know. Based on the information we have, Richard Maltby did a fine job, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think a fine job is the exact way to put it.
David Hulkenberg does an awesome job. It's beautiful
Oh, yeah. It
music
sounds
direction.
really nice.
It's immaculate.
The dynamics. Yeah.
It's very clear that both the singer, even in listening to the cast recording, it's very clear that both the singers feel totally comfortable and at ease and feel comfortable moving around the music.
Yeah.
They have a very solid foundation from David and his orchestra. Mm-hmm. And it's no surprise when you look at David's resume. He's one of the most in-demand conductors on Broadway today and well-earned.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's
right?
it.
So, like, creative team, how'd they do?
Like 8.
Eight's
from
across
what
the board.
I
I
saw.
agree. Absolutely.
Good job,
Good
team.
job. Absolutely.
Well done.
Everyone go listen to David conduct MJ the Musical is what he's on right now.
Oh,
That's
great.
his.
He's
Yeah,
conducting.
absolutely. Yeah, because he did the orchestrations and the arrangements on MJ as well. He probably
Got it.
finished Groundhog Day and then jumped on
Immediately
MJ.
was,
and
like,
we're just starting
working.
to see it now after a few years of work.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, something else happened between 2017 and 2022.
I can't
I'm
think
not
of
sure what
what
something
that
that's
was.
who knows. Everyone's got these gaps in their resume. It's really unprofessional. It's wild.
Where was everybody?
Okay, let's move on to the design.
Woo. Scenic design by Robert Brill. Costume design by Wade Laboissonniere. That was my best French.
That's good.
Lighting design by Ken Billington and Paul Tobin. And sound design by Peter Fitzgerald and Carl Casella.
What do you think of the set, Jill?
I love it.
Yeah, right?
I really love the design. The set, the lighting. Costumes are fine, but they're supposed to be really pedestrian.
Right,
so
that's the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of the design of this show. I think it was just super well done.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's a challenging thing in a design to give a director and a choreographer spaces to play and things to do, have a set that they can use, but also not overwhelm them.
Yeah.
It's a really, in the designs I've seen, it's a really fine balance to walk. And this one, I think, walks it perfectly.
Yes.
Like-
It's interactive, but it's not cumbersome.
When you see pictures, the Malcolm Getz and Will Chase don't look swallowed up by the stage. They
Yeah.
don't look lost on the stage. They always look in a very specific place in physical space, which is awesome. You know what it reminds me of? Around this time as well, it's right around this time, another small show that didn't do very well on Broadway at all, that we get the name from his title of show. Well, what did you think I was going to say?
Oh, I thought we were going Daddy Longlegs.
Daddy Longlegs is another great example, also around this time.
Huh.
Oh,
So many
all of those shows, you have beautiful designs.
Yeah.
Have just killer designs
Yeah.
that make it seem not like one or two people on a stage.
Totally.
Or in title of show's case, 4 people. You know what else I love about all of those designs? There's no tricks. No friggin' tricks. None of this. I get so sick of friggin' big old shows where everything's rotating or flying in and out. Like, that's great. That's Broadway magic. That's musical theater magic.
There's a time and a place.
There's a time and a place for it, and I'm not sick of it. Please hire me to do those all the time. I love doing them. I'm good at them.
I was gonna say, like, anytime we talk about design, you're always the first to be like, I loved all those flashing lights. I just loved them.
I think I just really like designs.
I know. No, and I love that. I love that.
It's a beautiful set design. Seems like a beautiful lighting design.
Yeah.
The sound design, we didn't hear it, so by default we have to assume it was beautiful.
Oh, probably.
Good costumes.
Yeah.
They avoid that thing that we've talked about a lot, though, with
Which is?
contemporary costumes where they look dumb. Where it's like,
Oh, yeah.
we talked about this maybe on like Margaritaville or something.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like contemporary, you're trying to dress people in contemporary garb, and it just like, what is going on?
It's like, I would not wear yellow and orange together, but thank you. You know?
Like, this is nice. Both of them are wearing things that
Just
I
like
would...
button-ups, right?
Button-ups, and then one of them in a really dark color scheme and one in like a tan color scheme. So they're very...
So that you know it's a ghost.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like you put them in taupe, because ghosts wear taupe.
I think they should have actually had Malcolm Getz in a sheet the whole time.
That would have been great. Oh,
Does
wow.
the whole show.
Or maybe in our version where we don't find out until later that he's passed, then they put the sheet on
Put
him.
the sheet on. And he does the rest of the show in his sheet with eye holes.
He's like, write what you know, and he's like,
Write what you know, Tom.
And then it gets like weird Christmas Carol vibes. Oh my god. Oh, okay. So is it safe to say that we both have really strong positive feelings about this design?
Really beautiful work.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Absolutely.
Woo, good
if
job.
someone designed me a set like they did for Story of My Life, or did a design like they did for Story of My Life, I'd be over the moon.
Me too.
Great work.
We need to talk about the performances.
We really do. Because just two people, Will Chase and Malcolm Getz.
So some folks will have heard Malcolm Getz on a very similar style of show from a very similar time period called A New Brain.
From a very similar composer.
Very similar.
That's certainly where I knew him from.
Yes.
Because A New Brain fucking rules.
Oh, yeah, it
A New
slaps.
Brain's a great show. The original off-Broadway cast recording with Malcolm Getz in the lead role is a stunning cast
it's so
recording.
good.
So that's Malcolm Getz's big thing. Malcolm Getz seems to be pretty choosy with his roles, actually. I don't think he's interested in being in a big old show.
Yeah,
'Cause
okay.
Certainly, I think with his ability and his talent and his resume, there's no question he's turned down those opportunities.
So the Scottish play, Story of My Life, Amour, Moliere comedies, and then I guess because this is IBDB, not IBOBD.
So that's so
There's
New
no
Brain isn't up on
Brain,
it. I know
and-
presumably his other.
And most of his other works, because I feel like he's had a good career. It's just been
He's got
like
some.
you said,
He's got some
selective.
TV as well.
Yeah,
He's got some good TV.
I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Getz.
Yeah.
I think he tells a story so beautifully through his singing.
Yeah.
He has this way of carrying the thought all the way through to the end in music, and it's really wonderful to listen to.
I agree completely. I think he's a beautiful performer, and he's got like that round mid-Atlantic thing in his
Yes.
voice a little bit. You know what I mean? In the vowels,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And it's just so friggin' charming. And he does a lot of work in this show, but really the heavy lifting is Will Chase.
Yeah, which
Will
I
Chase.
was kind of surprised by
Yeah.
because I know Will Chase because he's had quite a career.
Quite a career.
But I also feel like he's been the replacement a lot, or like,
Yeah.
he kind of isn't often on the original cast recording or whatever. So
I know him most prominently as the last Roger in Rent.
yeah, right.
Because he was the one that was filmed. He got that Broadway filming, and he's really nice in it. He's very good in it. He does a really nice Roger.
Yeah, like there's so many
And, he went
replacement
in-
roles for him,
Yeah, went into Something Rotten after.
which I missed because I saw the original cast.
great
Boo-hoo.
with
Christian
Christian
Borle.
Borle. Yeah, great.
Yeah. But it's interesting, yeah, like when you go through his credits, it's a lot of, replacement performer or,
Went in to Billy Elliot for like 2 years
Yeah.
as Tony, but as a replacement Tony.
like it's pretty wild. It's
Like,
pretty wild.
I mean, great. That's a great career. Like
Oh, it's a
no
brilliant
shade
career.
whatsoever to people going into replacement parts in musicals.
None at all.
But yeah, like where's the big role that, like, even for Malcolm Getz, even though it wasn't an enormous success, he's a new brain. He's
Yeah.
Gordon Schwinn.
Absolutely.
Whereas Will Chase is such a talented performer. And he is talented. I think he's very good in this.
Oh, I agree.
The character of Thomas is a problem, as we discussed, but Will Chase crushes
Yep.
left and right here. I think he's very good. He's a beautiful voice.
Gorgeous voice.
especially-
Again, that same amazing storytelling ability.
Yeah. That's because what I'd heard of him before, what I knew him from mainly was Rent, where he's doing like the Adam Pascal thing very well.
And it seems like he followed Adam Pascal a couple times. Aida.
Yeah.
So he did Rent,
So
Aida.
he can, like, he
yeah.
can step into that rock thing.
Totally.
Also starred in High Fidelity, which we'll talk
Oh,
about someday on
yeah.
this podcast. I can't wait.
Maybe that's the big role you were talking about.
Well,
No,
he's had that thing, that swing. He swung there. He swung in Story of My Life. This could have been it. Like, if this had hit, he'd be Will Chase from Story of My Life.
wow.
Yeah, no complaints here, other than I wonder if the two of them are too similar.
Yeah.
I wonder if two distinctly different voices, both actual physical singing voices and distinctly different, like, actual
Yeah.
artistic voices might have played better. I'm also like, why did it have to be two white dudes? Like, there's only two people in the show. Can we figure it out?
Maybe the big reveal is that they're twins. You know how I feel about twins.
I think there's plenty of room in here for a
Oh,
for a person of
absolutely.
color in this show, and there's
Oh, no
there would be
question.
there's no reason you shouldn't do that, especially because the show's about on such a personal level.
Wouldn't you love a smart Josh Henry in this show?
Oh, in which track? In like as Thomas?
I would put him in Thomas for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Groovy.
Okay, maybe the goal is a gentle rewrite.
Yep.
They're not twins.
Which I think is good. I think that's a strong choice.
But with Josh Henry, and
Absolutely.
we can think on who the second person would
And
be.
Malcolm Getz. He did great.
Oh, sure. Fine. He can stay.
Yeah, he can Will Chase and Malcolm Getz both do fantastic work.
Good job.
Absolutely.
10 out of 10. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish they both sang higher.
Yeah,
I wanna
but
see
that's
them
not
scream.
their fault.
No. I want to see him sing higher.
I know, me too. I want one riff.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the Tonys?
I would love to. These are the 2009 Tonys?
Correct. Okay, we have 4 Best Musical noms.
Okay, in 2009.
You have done 2 of them, I think.
Like I have conducted
You've
these shows.
conducted, I think.
Okay.
If I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
You're probably not. Is one of them Billy
Oh,
Smelliot?
yeah.
Okay, so Billy Smelliot's
Sorry,
one.
yes,
Yep,
one is coming
totally,
up.
which I'll be conducting this spring. So that's one and that wins, right?
That wins,
Yep,
correct.
totally, is Billy Smelliot.
Because it had a massive amount of nominations. I
Yeah.
think it was 15 noms, I think, and 10 wins or something.
And that's good. It's a
bonkers.
good show. Great.
So the other one that I think you've done, but
Yep.
maybe I'm just a bad friend and I'm wrong, was a pretty big hit film adaptation.
Is it a Disney production?
No, not technically.
Okay.
It had some heavy hitters in
Okay.
one in the titular role and the other as the opposite. I'm trying not, because so many of my clues would
Heavy
give
hitters,
it away.
Broadway heavy hitters?
Yes,
okay.
Broadway heavy hitters.
But it's not a Disney.
It has a lot of different characters in it. Very few of them are human.
Oh, do you have any more hints you can give me?
Green.
Is it Shrek?
Yes.
Yes! There you go. So those are the two, have two beautiful shows, frankly.
Yes.
Shrek's a really beautiful show.
The next one
Yep.
is a show that you and I have talked about as being one of our favorite contemporary musicals for arrangements. It's almost entirely sung through. It has my favorite nose on Broadway.
Oh,
We were actually talking about this person
I'm
today.
really not sharp on this today. We were talking about this person today.
Briefly.
Jeremy Jordan?
No.
No.
The other guy that's like...
Aaron Tveit?
Yes.
Is it also a film adaptation?
Nope.
No. Oh, this is Next to Normal.
Yes, it is.
As if Next to Normal didn't take Best Musical
I know.
after it won the goddamn Pulitzer.
Here's my theory.
Yeah.
They didn't decide who was going to win Best Musical until after the opening number. And, and then in the opening number, when Aaron Tveit sang I'm Alive into Stockard Channing's mouth, they were like, maybe it's not the best musical.
Of the three we've listed so far, Next to Normal is the best musical.
It
I
is
love
the
Next to
best
Normal. I
one.
think it's great.
The last one is a show that I don't have much experience with, but I believe there was a production of it in Toronto.
Is it Rock of Ages?
It is.
That's a hell of a best musical category. Wow.
So think about those 4 things playing on Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay. Think about these revivals. Can you name any revivals that were happening?
No, I
I
don't-
gave you a
no,
hint because I said Stockard Channing gets her face sung into.
No, I don't. I
This
have
one's
no idea.
weird. It was Pal Joey.
Sure.
So
okay.
Pal Joey revival,
Yeah.
Guys and Dolls revival.
Sure.
There was a West Side Story revival with new Spanish lyrics by Lin-Manuel.
That's when the Spanish West Side Story was.
Yes.
Great.
And Hair. So all of these.
That Hair revival's cool.
And it won the Tony for Best Revival, as
Yep,
it should have, because
totally.
I saw it and it was incredible. So think about those 8 shows alone,
Yep.
playing all at the same time.
That's a good time to go to Broadway, yeah.
But it's a horrible time to go to Broadway.
Why?
Do you know what I mean? When
Because-
you're in Story of My Life. When the show itself.
Right. It's a good time for an audience to go to Broadway.
Exactly.
It's a terrible time to take a show to Broadway.
That's what I mean.
Oh, man.
So trying to compete. And then, of
Well,
course,
you're
you have your
absolutely
staples that are still running. You have your Wicked. You have
Like,
your Phantom. You have your
Phantom.
Chicago.
This is, geez, it's, well, you're absolutely right. It's, The Story of My Life is not a bad show, as we've discussed. It's a nice show.
Yep.
But it doesn't go on the best musical list against those 4.
No.
You could maybe switch out Rock of Ages, but like, even then, Rock of Ages is a much more functional show, frankly.
And when we talk about the average like Broadway theater goer,
Yeah.
it's if you live in the surrounding area, you're picking and choosing what you're seeing probably.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to see a show every couple of days.
Most tourists
So-
can maybe afford 2 or 3 on a trip,
Right.
at the
So
most.
if I'm there in February
Yeah.
or January and White Christmas is still running,
Yeah.
I'm seeing White Christmas. Or 9 to 5, which was also running at the same time. Like
Or if you're going to take a chance on a show that isn't attached to anything, it'll
Yeah.
be Next to Normal.
Oh, 100%.
Like you've already got the piece that is just, you're selling it on, this is really good. Just get in there and see it.
Yes.
Which is the same thing you're
Small
going to have
cast
to sell.
show, beautiful set. Like, what more do you need?
What more do you need? An audience. You need people to come see it, and Story of My Life didn't.
Just didn't have. Also, I thought, fun fact,
Yes.
there was a tie that year for best orchestrations. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
I had no idea. Like, how did I miss that?
Between who?
So, Michael Starobin and Tom Kitt
For Next
to Normal,
Brilliant orchestration.
tied with Martin Koch for
Those
Billy
are nice
Elliot.
orchestrations too. Yep, very well
Tied.
deserved. Excellent.
I don't remember seeing that in recent memory. Okay, we have 2 more questions to ask.
Let's wrap up this. Let's wrap this sucker up.
So, the question I will ask is, should this be a musical?
I don't want to say no because I believe in the small musical, and I believe in the musical that isn't necessarily big and splashy.
Yep.
Yes, this should be a musical. It proves it by existing. It is a musical. It tells the story. It got us invested emotionally. Mm-hmm. This production may not have been perfect, and it's very easy to see why it failed. But yes, this should be a musical.
Yes.
What about
I
you?
agree completely.
Great. Totally.
I think, had it gone to maybe off-Broadway, an off-Broadway production,
Absolutely.
it might have lasted longer.
This show, more than any other show we've covered possibly, says to me, we can't keep using Broadway as the sole indicator of a successful musical in our world.
Absolutely.
Because it just doesn't leave room for shows like this.
Yeah. A beautiful show.
Yes, exactly.
About a theme that deserves exploration.
That clearly connects to people. You look at all these regional productions, all these translations.
Yep.
This show, people connect to this show.
It means something.
It couldn't even live a week on Broadway.
Oh, it's really sad to think about. So yeah, we both agree on that.
So, is this show a flop? Is it a secret bop? Or is it so bad we have to make it stop?
I would go with it was a flop, obviously. Yep. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't necessarily call it
it's
a
not
bop.
called a bop, right?
Because I don't know if it's in the same category as Taboo, which to me was like a
secret
bop. Yeah. I would say the production was a flop. I would pay good money to see a new production of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a production could be a bop. Mm-hmm. It has the potential, but there's some work to do.
Yeah.
And I hope they find a place to keep creating these shows, then where these shows can keep getting the showcases they deserve.
Maybe they could do it at their circus.
Very good. Of course. We didn't even talk about their connection to their circus.
That's
Start it
where
over.
They could
We're
do
doing it again.
Yeah. Start from the top. Wow. That was a fun one,
That was great. Dear Playbills, thank you for listening once again. Mm-hmm. Thank you to our supporters at the Canada Council for the Arts and our partners at the Crescent Arts Centre this season. Please keep an eye out for other Village Conservatory podcasts coming soon. It Takes Two is going to be dropping. This is a podcast that Jill and Daphne are involved in heavily.
Me, lightly.
Yep.
Daphne, heavily.
Yeah, I am super excited for everybody to get to listen to the wonderful pairings that we've been able to put together from artists across Canada. People are doing puppetry, people are doing devised theater, people are talking about what it means to be queer, Jewish, and Indigenous. It's all wonderful and amazing, and I can't wait for you to meet these people and hear what they have to say about theater.
Hell yeah. Please join us in a couple weeks when we're going to talk about the Rocky Horror Show.
Not the picture show.
No.
Don't you watch that.
Don't you do it.
In anticipation of this episode, I'm telling you.
Don't you do it.
And we're going to have a very special guest.
I'm so excited.
Mr. Breton Lalama is going to be on our podcast. He is a wonderful trans artist from out in the Maritimes who recently wrapped up a production of the Rocky Horror Show where I believe he played Riff Raff.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So I am very excited to hear his take on this show as a trans-identified artist.
Absolutely.
Woohoo.
All right. See y'all then.
Bye.
Hi everyone, this is producer Daphne speaking. Thank you all so much for listening to Monkeys and Playbills, the show where we take a look at Broadway musicals that had 100 performances or fewer before closing. To learn more about the show, you can follow us on Instagram at Monkeys and Playbills Pod, on Twitter at Monkey Playbills, or email us at monkeysandplaybillspod@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/monkeysandplaybills. Super exciting! We now have merch available. Visit spring.com and search Monkeys and Playbills to find mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, and more designs coming soon. Monkeys and Playbills is proud to be a Village Conservatory for Music Theater podcast. Original music for the show is provided by Paul dingus, and the show is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. We wanted to give a special thank you to the Canada Council for the Arts for supporting this season of Monkeys and Playbills, as well as 2 other podcasts now joining the Village Conservatory family. Stay tuned for more details on both of these new shows coming soon.